That was the current US single from Skid Row, and they're over there at the moment touring with Pantera and hopefully be returning here in the summer. Now we take a look behind the scenes to see how the rock press really works.
Kerrang's been going for, well, it's over 10 years now. Its success is based on its in-depth knowledge. I mean, we've got a team of people here that really know the subject. And know the subject going back a long way, too. We're lucky in that they all keep on really on top of the subject. They know when there's a good new band coming out. We cover it as soon as we can, and we always do it with a pretty irreverent sense of humour as well. We don't like to take anything too seriously. So we entertain as well as inform the readers. The stuff that gets into Kerrang is, some of it is very much traditional heavy metal. It's, some of it just walks in through the door, really, but we like to go for stuff that has just a great guitar sound or a right feel. It's very much down to the individual band and the feeling we get about them, whether or not they should be in Kerrang. We argue about some bands. Some bands we have in that sometimes we think, well, maybe we shouldn't, but overall I think we get the balance about right. A band to get on the front cover of Kerrang doesn't have to be a million-selling, stadium-filling act. We like to take our chances with bands that are less well-known. For example, Kerrang was the first magazine to put Guns N' Roses on the cover. We've also gone with bands like King's X and Wolfsbane and the Choir Boys long before anyone else, purely because we really believe in the bands and we think we see a spark of talent there that will eventually blossom into something bigger.
My role as Kerrang's designer is to be a rock god, really, and to make the office a very nice place to work in and very pleasant, and also to make the magazine look as heavy metal as it possibly can. I'm given all of this stuff, basically, that doesn't look anything like this, and I use this machine to move things around, like that. So you'll move over there, and just do that, basically, just move things around and make them look nice as far as my eye is concerned. And then I go and spoil it all by putting really horrible colours that you can't read the writing out of in the background with pictures that are relevant, that are artistic. And that's it, really. It's just a question of moving things around. That's all it is.
Some bands do make themselves look pretty stupid. Some do it on purpose, some do it accidentally. Blackie Lawless recently insisted on having his photograph taken with a chainsaw buried in his guts in front of a desk covered in raw meat. If Blackie wants to do that, fine. I mean, he's as good a laugh as any guy in Kerrang. Other bands take it more seriously. I don't think you can lump everyone together and say heavy metal is this or heavy metal is that. It's completely varied. People's approach is completely different. You open Kerrang and it's not an easy magazine to look at, but then again the music is not easy to listen to either, so it's perfectly in keeping with heavy metal. We try to make it as wild and wacky and over the top as the music itself. And if you buy it each week, there's not much more you need to know about it.
You have to treat the press for what it is. It's a conduit between a band and an audience, and it has to be, I guess sometimes you have to walk a very fine line and be careful. They are potentially career-destroying people, but, you know, they didn't do us any harm. We came back twice as strong, so maybe a good slagging off does people good.
A lot of the time in interviews, people will have a basic outline for their story, and their only interest will be in getting you to support whatever that outline is, you know. Right. So asking you questions that will support it, and if your answers don't support it, trying to find another way to get that out of you, and then only printing the things right. that you may have said that may support that.
Bad science disguised as bad journalism. We get irritated by the press, basically. So in that way, they're important. But
They're usually not very interested in us, so there's no point in getting worked up about whether you're in the press or not. The press will basically latch onto whatever it thinks it wants to latch onto, and there's not a hell of a lot you can do about it.
Good music journalist is somebody who understands the whole picture of music. I mean, you know, they might be writing for a heavy metal magazine or a rock magazine, but at the same time, they should know about, you know, virtually every single type of music. They should know where everything fits, you know. I think that it really is a question of seeing music as a whole instead of seeing it as a segment, which I think a lot of people do. And I think that's a waste of time, you know. I mean, there's so much out there. It's like saying I'm only going to eat one flavour of ice cream for the rest of my life, you know. But what about chocolate chip? When we review bands and stuff like that, we always make sure that the right person who's into that type of music goes along and reviews the band and does a fair job. And as long as we think it's fair, then it will go in. But we don't go out of our way to destroy bands, we don't go out of our way to wind people up. And we don't, by and large, get too personal. There have been a couple of instances which have been personal instances, and they've been dealt with in the right way, I think, eventually.
I just basically commission the journalists and the photographers who cover the live shows up and down the country. We get the press releases in stating where they're happening, where the gigs are happening, that is. If we've got a contributor in that area who we know likes a certain band, we'll try and get him to do it. It's basically just trying to get a person who likes a certain kind of music to cover a certain kind of band, rather than have an AOR fan go and cover a thrash gig or vice versa. You've basically got to try and get the point across to a person who wasn't there, how the audience reacted, whether it was empty, whether there were two men and a dog there, or whether there were 10 rows at the front all moshing and stage diving. Quite often, a lot of the reviews I read don't really say anything about that. We have a little bit of a problem here in that we don't have as much space as some of the other magazines, and our reviews are shorter, so sometimes you don't actually get the opportunity to be quite as thorough as maybe you should be. But that's, I mean, we'd rather have 10 reviews in than maybe 5 that just pontificate.
I design it how I feel like. If they don't like it, or the editor doesn't like what I do, then he'll say, oh, I don't like this, and he'll change his mind, and then we can work to some compromise where we're both happy at the end of the day. But basically, it's down to me, really.
What we've retained is an exciting edge. I think we've got, you know, we've also got a certain depth and a certain... I find a lot of people tend to trivialise this sort of music, and there's a lot of things to trivialise anyway, simply because of the band's concern. But at the same time, there's also a lot of depth and there's also a lot of loyalty, you know, in this type of music. So I think that we've sort of capitalised on that, in that we've gone into to do interviews with a certain angle, and we know what we're talking about. Whereas certain other magazines, you know, haven't got a clue, to be honest. There is this idea that journalists are very often failed musicians, but that's not the case on Kerrang. Any failures we have are purely non-musical.
What's wrong with being a failure anyway? Next up, though, the blinding new single from Metallica, Nothing Else Matters. And watch out for a limited edition EP of songs recorded on April the 20th at the Freddie Mercury tribute gig. That EP will be out on April the 27th.